All right, welcome. Today, we're going to dive into a topic that seems huge and far away, but is actually happening right in your own life every single day. We're talking about global issues. So, let me just ask you this right off the bat. Think about your day so far. How have you personally participated in global affairs today? And your first thought might be, I haven't, but I promise you, you almost certainly have. Seriously, think about it. Did you buy something that was made overseas? Maybe check the tag on your shirt, or just use an app on your phone. Every single one of those actions, yep, that's you plugging into this giant, interconnected web of what we call international relations. There's this great quote from a political scientist, Joshua Goldstein, that really hits the nail on the head. He says that through all these little everyday choices, every single person makes a contribution to the world of international relations. So yeah, you're already a player on the world stage, whether you knew it or not.
Okay, section 1. It starts with you.
All right, so we've established you're in the game, but who else is on this global stage with you? I mean, who really runs the world? To get a handle on global issues, you've got to meet the main actors first. Knowing who they are and what they're after, well, that's the key to understanding pretty much any headline you're going to see. First up, let's talk about the heavyweight champion, the state. Now, when we say state here, we're basically just talking about a country. Think Mexico, Japan, or Nigeria. It's a territory with a government and a population. For centuries, these have been the main characters in the story of our world. But states don't just act alone, right? They team up. They form these, well, you can think of them like clubs. We call them intergovernmental organizations, or IGOs for short. Whenever countries decide to cooperate on big stuff like world peace or global trade, they create an IGO. The most famous one, of course, is the United Nations, where pretty much every state on Earth has a seat at the big table. Okay, so what about groups that aren't governments? That's where NGOs come in, non-governmental organizations. These are private groups working across borders to tackle really specific issues. So think of groups like Amnesty International fighting for human rights, or Doctors Without Borders providing medical care. They're not trying to run a country, they're on a mission to solve a specific problem. And their influence is massive. Today, there are over 25,000 international NGOs out there. That is a huge global network of organizations pushing for change on everything from climate action to human rights. And finally, we have the multinational corporation, or MNC. We're talking about companies like Apple, Toyota, or Cemex. They operate all over the world, and their decisions about jobs and investments can honestly have a bigger economic impact on a small country than many government policies. So what's the key difference here? Well, a state's power comes from what we call sovereignty. It's authority over its own territory, and its goal is always protecting the national interest. But for these other non-state actors, power comes from things like resources and information, and they're laser-focused on achieving their own very specific goals. Okay, let's move on. Section 3, conflict or cooperation. With all these actors on the world stage, do they tend to fight or work together? There are two main ways to see it. Think of them as different lenses you can use to view the world. The realism lens sees a world of constant competition for power. The liberalism lens, on the other hand, sees a world where cooperation is absolutely possible through institutions and trade. Now, the realist perspective is powerfully illustrated by the tragic breakup of Yugoslavia. It was a brutal scramble for power and territory. When the central government collapsed, conflicts over security and national interest just exploded into war and horrific ethnic violence. On the other hand, we see that liberal perspective at work all around us. States have built incredible institutions for cooperation. The UN pursues peace, the World Trade Organization regulates trade, and the European Union integrates an entire continent. These are powerful examples of choosing mutual gain over conflict. Which brings us to our next section, Section 4, our shared challenges. So what are these shared challenges? A huge one is global inequality. As this data shows, the average person in a more developed country has a vastly different economic reality than someone in a less developed country. And that gap, it affects everything from health to opportunity. And consider this staggering statistic.
97% of the world's farmers live in less developed countries. That shows a profound imbalance in our global system of food production and labor. A lot of this is tied to a core problem that biologists call the tragedy of the commons. The idea is that when we all share a resource, like the oceans or the atmosphere, but we all act in our own separate self-interest, we can end up depleting or destroying that resource for everyone.
Climate change is a perfect and terrifying example of this tragedy. The planet has already warmed by about 1 degree Celsius. That's a direct result of our collective actions, and it's a challenge no single country can solve alone.
All right, final section. Section 5, what's your role?
This brings us right back to where we started. You. In this complex world, what can you do? It begins with 3 steps. 1, stay informed. 2, engage critically and question different perspectives. And 3, act consciously, remembering that your choices have a global impact.
This explainer is just a starting point. These concepts, the actors, the theories, the challenges, are your foundational building blocks. Now, in your Global Issues course, you're going to get the full toolkit to analyze and understand our world.
Because ultimately, the future isn't a script that's already been written. It's a live, ongoing story, and every single day you're helping to write the next page. The only question is, what part will you play?